and cross over into mainstream
Yeah.
Twitter. All right. Get the controls. Hello, welcome to 25 Cents, our video game podcast. I am Chris.
And I'm Nick. Each episode will be making the rounds to our four corners: console, PC, Apple, and tabletop, with a focus on games that are great to play if you've got kids.
You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts or on the web at Goodstuff.network. Missed it. It's not a good start when we miss that cue. I don't have confidence for this show now.
No, our timing is all off. I'm podcasting from a different space on a different computer.
Yeah, you mixed it up.
We're just setting ourselves up for great success here.
Yeah.
So starting off in console corner, obviously both of our sets of kids are back in school. So do we have a little more time to play games? Have you been playing anything or?
Yeah, they have. Well, they have been for sure, and we're navigating that whole like return to the screen and the associated addictions that follow, right? And so, definitely the Fortnite drug has hit hard. And then it was good because we had school and then a break, long weekend break, which we went up to the family cabin to do all the taking the dock out and winterizing and stuff that we do up here.
Sure.
And so it was kind of a forced break. But then my nephew brought along his PlayStation, and so then they were playing. You know, when cousins are around and grandparents are around, you kind of just let the rules relax a little bit, at least at this age anyways. I know when they were 2 and it was like sleep time, we still held firm, held our ground. But now it's just kind of like, where are the kids? Oh, they're playing video games. Oh, it's beautiful out and there's a lake and there's a boat. But they're playing video games, I guess. That's what we're going to do. So, yeah, lots of Fortnite. A lot of Brawlhalla is another game that I haven't played it yet, but the cousins love that apparently. So
not familiar with that one.
Yeah, I think it's another free to play one that's in the Fortnite model of get rich by selling things, skins in the game and stuff like that. So how about you? What have you done on a console lately?
So I did go back to Hades for the first time since I think January, and I don't know why I had set it down for so long. I guess there were enough Apple Arcade releases keeping me busy, and maybe just a little bit reduced game time. But yeah, I mean, it's still the really fun game. I remember, where I was in the progression. I'd done something like 50 runs, and so the various power ups are making everything a little bit easier. So I was finally able to beat like the third major boss with 2 of the weapons in the game that I hadn't gotten past before, which unlocks some additional stuff. Still haven't cleared the game yet, but I'll keep going back to that one.
I just forgot now that you say that. I actually played Hades for the first time. Thanks for maybe that was your like subtle cue to remind my brain to actually read the document that we wrote together. But it's like, hello, I'm not awake yet. But yeah, it was, and actually I managed to hook up my Xbox to the computer and streamed it out to the YouTube just for fun to try it out. And it was you were watching for a bit, Kyle was watching for a bit. And I really enjoyed the game. Unfortunately, our GamePass subscription expired 2 days after that. So I got into it and then I've had to stop, and we're not we basically got some sort of $1 deal for like 6 months. I don't know how we did it, but nothing illegal, but somehow we worked that. But so now it's kind of like the decision of doing this, subscribing again, and really, like I said, Fortnite and other free-to-play games have kind of taken over, and so not really that interested in picking up again. Although if I had the time, I would love, it's great for just grabbing a game, just like you do with Netflix or whatever, where you can just grab any game or most any game and play it, not have to worry about deciding whether it's worth buying or whatever. And so, but I really enjoyed the game. It was lots of fun. Definitely has the comedic elements to it but still like hack and slash and lots of demon killing, monster killing, weird weapon using kind of fun. So I'll definitely go back.
Yeah, as I've said on the show before, it's a great one, and I think I'm going to kind of slowly work my way through getting back into it and actually trying to at least complete the game. I don't know about like maxing out all of the unlocks, but at least get through the full story.
Did I see on here that you played Fortnite for the first time?
I did. So technically that would be, I guess, PC corner, but right. In terms of platform, I tried it just a couple of rounds. I am so confused, Chris. I need to watch some videos or something. So there's this there's an intro video to the season, I guess it's season 7 or 8. Invasion. There's aliens. I'm like a purple alien because I got some default battle pass unlock skin. I understand the general concept of the game, right? Which is that the area, there's 100 people, you're killing each other, the area gets smaller and smaller, at least in the default mode.
Yeah.
I did not try like creative or the other stuff. Um, I think the first time I played, I wandered into an area and met an NPC who just insta-gibbed me, doctor something. And so I was out like in 93rd place or something random because I walked into the wrong area, did not know what was going on. But I think the third round I played, I managed to get second, mostly by arming up and hiding in cabins in as the storm closed in until it was just I had like 2 or 3 actual encounters with other players.
Yeah.
So I'm sure I'm in the bottommost matchmaking tier, which probably helped. I think the trickiest thing, so I was doing PC with controller, and I think I did not have the sensitivity set quite right. And I was always a mouse look player when I was playing shooters heavily, in like high school. So yeah, I was definitely not very good at it. I'm sure maybe there's some maybe I'm in some clips on some teens TikTok or something about how terrible I was jumping around and aiming. Yeah, I mean, I really see the appeal of the game, especially for kids. And what struck me in just the short play session I did yesterday was it feels like more of a game platform than a game, right? So it's like it's a brand, and there's all this stuff going on in there. There's tournaments, there's seasons, there's creative mode, there's other gameplay modes. And you can really see how Epic has built a money-making engine of some renown. There's so much to do, and in some ways, in that regard, it reminds me a little bit of how big MMOs like World of Warcraft were. Let's say 10 years ago, when everyone was trying to chase Blizzard's success with WoW. And so like every branded IP was trying to roll out an MMO, and most of them got no traction. Or some of them have they've shifted to free to play model, or they've stuck around. But yeah, I mean Fortnite, it seems like the kind of game you could get really sucked into.
Yeah,
but I was so confused.
I don't know when you may have, like, they just updated, if maybe season 7, whatever the latest one is. Yeah, I think they like completely revamped the menu system too, to like really highlight a lot of the custom creative mode games that people can make. And so it's actually made it even more confusing as far as how to just play the game, because the traditional drop in on the island, what is that mode called? Anyway, that default mode, whatever, that you all sort of associate with Fortnite, is almost like secondary now to all the, like my kids too. They love playing all these custom creative mode games that people have made way more, that actually make it much more like it's just deathmatch, like Quake or whatever, but in the Fortnite world, obviously, where it's just you just respawn in a very small world, and you keep going around and around in that same place and grabbing a bunch of weapons, and it's just like mass chaos kind of thing, shooting just constantly. And so, but yeah, that's funny actually. We'll have to like try. I know Kyle has played it. I forget who else within the Good Stuff circles has played it. We could do like a squad thing sometime where we're all doing terribly together. One thing I just read actually this morning that kind of makes sense to me is a quote someone said about Fortnite and related games is, once you start losing the initial gameplay, when you sort of start winning first and then you lose really badly, that's how you know you've switched from AI players to real human players. Is that when you start losing? And so like they've definitely built it. It didn't always used to be this way, but they've definitely built in some AI training games, I think, for people who are brand new, to take, so that it goes easy on them, to draw them into the game a little better, rather than just like getting stomped on right off the bat. And so I have a feeling that's kind of what's going on sometimes too. And even when you die still, those, like, sometimes the bots are probably just kind of enjoying beating up a human. But yeah, it's
I think one of the times there was definitely like I went into some like facility or something, and there was like what appeared to be an AI guard that just I didn't have a weapon yet, so I died very early in that round.
Yeah, there's definitely bots that are bots, but then even the other players you're playing against, I think, are AI controlled in some of the gameplays, just to like either fill out a game or help noobs sort of get familiar with and I have some
That's
success
interesting.
anyways. Is the theory anyways? They haven't outright said it, I don't think, but
Yeah,
so
something to get you into the free to play treadmill.
yeah,
And
yeah,
the other thing that struck me was like, so I guess there's music unlocks that will play when you drop into the kind of bus loading area at the start of a round, so you like hear other people's snippets of their songs. And the one I had available with like the first couple of I guess battle pass coins, whatever they are, currency,
yeah,
the different layers of currency, was some ska, because there's like this ska punk character who's part of the season who like believes that aliens are real. I don't know.
yeah,
Anyway, like just getting the little samples of the greater thing. I think the thing that struck me compared to when I was playing shooters regularly, and again mostly LAN games, or like local console multiplayer like GoldenEye on the 64 or Halo on the Xbox, is it did not feel like an it would not be easy to memorize the configuration of the island the way you can learn like where every single pickup is on a particular deathmatch level. And some of that's just right, the scale you can do a game these days compared to 20 years ago.
yeah. Although my kids, when I play with them watching me, they have a pretty good idea where stuff are or is.
Okay,
And so
interesting.
I think there's more to it, but it definitely feels like, to me, it feels more random, but I'm not playing it every day for an hour. So
Right.
I think there is something to be said for it. There's usually a loot box or whatever, in certain spots, and it might spit out different things, but so you're not getting the same like machine gun every time you go there. And there's some randomization as far as, for sure, like, weapons get increasingly more powerful the closer you get towards the end game as well. I think, anyways, that's my
Interesting.
assumption, anyways. So, but yeah, I find it like just a fun game, like running around. You have the odd encounter. I haven't given them any money. My kids, I think, have put in collectively between the two of them that play it, $50, I think, if over the years, in terms of battle passes and skins they've bought or whatever. So in terms of like entertainment value for your money, we're doing pretty good. If that was the only basis for video games, worth, obviously, which as a cheap Canadian, it definitely factors in pretty big. But yeah, so it's like, even like looking at a new console, my son was like, getting drawn into like the new Xbox console idea, and I was like, what are you going to use it for? Probably Fortnite. I was like, well, what doesn't our current
We have
Xbox?
Fortnite at home.
Yeah, like it's not hard to imagine Epic coming out with like Steam, like similar to Steam, like just like a Fortnite box, and that's all. It's just a Fortnite box. Like, and it's hard to imagine it's going to last that long that they would do that. But like, seriously, over the last 3 years, if we could have paid $250 for a cutting edge, whatever it was at the time, console that all it did would play Fortnite, my kids would have been fine with that, actually. And it's
Right.
kind of weird in that, like, even when I think about building a PC or whatever, it's like I could pay $1,200 to build a decent PC or buy a used Xbox, and that's going to play most of the games. I don't know. Anyways, this is a bit of
Yeah,
divergence.
it'll be interesting to see what the long-term trajectory is for Epic, because obviously they'd been established, but Fortnite is a massive hit, and culturally outside of the game, beyond just what money they make in the game itself. And you mentioned Valve and Steam, right? Like obviously Valve was originally known for Half-Life and had a very successful series of games, and then Counter-Strike was a dominant multiplayer game for a while. But they leverage that into the Steam store, and that's their primary business. Like, I mean, they do still make games. They do these weird hardware experiments, right? Like the Steam hardware we've talked about, the controller and the new mobile console and stuff. And Epic has a store that you can get stuff on. It'll be interesting to see what happens once Fortnite is seen as the game played by like boring college students or whatever, right?
Or
In a few
boomers.
years.
Yeah.
Or boomers. Yeah. Oh,
Whatever,
it's
old
so
millennials.
boring now.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what that trajectory is, and certainly I've seen that with other games I've played, or even like I mentioned, World of Warcraft being the dominant MMO for so long, and obviously still going strong, but not the center of that aspect, that type of game, like it once was.
Yeah.
Um,
Speaking of World of Warcraft, you had a Diablo 2, the Blizzard tie-in, I guess, there, but
yeah,
Diablo 2
yeah.
remastered.
Yeah, so Diablo 2 Remastered, there's a review by Holly Green, who's a games journalist I've followed for a long time on Twitter. And she really dived into, like the conversation we've been having about Blizzard and kind of can you can you ethically consume a game being made by a company that treats its employees the way Blizzard apparently does. And yeah, it's a good read. There's a lot of stuff in there. It's not really a review about the game itself. It's more about the environment it's coming out in.
Yeah.
I played a little bit of Diablo 2 way back. Played more Diablo 3, I think, of various Blizzard games. And to the money point you were making about Fortnite, I mean, the amount of money I put into World of Warcraft and then later even a little bit Hearthstone is probably pretty embarrassing compared to just buying games in boxes. Um, yeah, it's an interesting read, and I would definitely, for more context on sort of the broader conversation around where Blizzard is headed in the uh, as it's perceived in the gaming community and the game industry is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Um, the remake I'm much more excited about is the Myst remake. Just came out, I think last week on basically all platforms. And this is unlike some of the other Myst re-releases or the real Myst like early 3D one that came out as a remake at some point in, I forget when that was. This is a ground up rebuild of the entire game, all the puzzles. So it's not implemented in HyperCard anymore. And it has full VR support, which is also interesting because
Yeah,
that's
that would
one of
be cool.
those, you know, almost meditative puzzle games that I think would do really well in VR.
Yeah, that's. I never actually played the. Did you play the game like all the way through? You think?
Yeah, as a kid, I
Yeah,
played the original CD-ROM, and then I had I played
CD-ROM.
Riven, which came on 5 CDs that you had to keep swapping out as you moved between different areas of the world. And then yeah, Myst 3 Exile, Myst 4. I think I even briefly tried the Myst MMO that they tried to build that lasted for a short time.
Yeah,
And yeah, Myst hit my sweet spot in terms of like puzzles and language. I mean, I was like studying Denis, and I read some of the tie-in novels. I was pretty into it in
nice.
the 90s. It was and that was also an era where it was a game for Mac, right? Like it was almost unusual. Cyan was a Mac centric studio there for a while.
Yeah. So is it a game that like on two? I guess two questions involved. Like the puzzles would be the same as before, right? Or is it? Did they update the like? Would you be able to just run through the game now quickly, or how does that,
Um,
in your
my
understanding?
my understanding is it's the same game, and unless they puzzles, I'm not aware of any additional stuff. Um, the uh, the thing that would be different, right, is like for a lot of the puzzles, you have to collect information from one part of the world. So like you would know how to do that if you remember, but you still
Right.
have to go and get like a particular number or a particular word from somewhere else to know the sequence to do on some other puzzle. So you can't just like walk up to a thing and punch in a code and be done.
Right.
Um, and I think the point would be to explore the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm hoping this has some success because then that means they might do the same thing for like Riven, which was a great story. I haven't heard yet how they did the acting because the original game had tiny postage stamp sized videos of real people delivering like the characters' lines as you read and interacted with them. So I'll be curious how that shapes up. I haven't looked at that yet.
Yeah. And the other question was like, as far as kids, is it something you'd be like cool playing as a family, or is it too difficult in your memory of it?
Yeah, the it's definitely more of like a preteen level of puzzle, or you'd be helping out a younger kid for sure.
Right.
Unless you can kind of like show them how to take notes. My son has played the iPad port a tiny bit, and I think he kind of just like walking around and looking at it because it looked cool, even though it's in that case that's the original graphics just kind of wrapped up in an iPad app.
Right. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, and that, I see it's also like you said, it's multi-platform, so it gives like Xbox, Steam, VR, like you said, and then the Mac too, still, which is pretty incredible as far as just modern game development. You just don't see it that often anymore on all platforms like that, as at launch especially. So cool to
Yeah.
check that out. So, and then just like the idea of like remakes in general, they just get to keep making money off of this original thing. Like it's just crazy because there's like my kids and even people in their 20s or whatever, like the generation prior to mine and yours or whatever, as far as like who've maybe skipped the game, never played it, or the remake that they made
Right.
earlier was like it's too sucky, they didn't try it. Now they get to relive this hype, and they hear a bunch of old people talking about this game that was so amazing, and maybe they try it, and like, yeah, just the gift that keeps on giving of money.
Yeah, and I think we were talking about it last episode or a recent episode about like the upcoming Final Fantasy Pixel remaster, right? It's a game that existed at a particular point in time. You could play it, and it got ported a few places, sometimes poorly, and then there were maybe some re-releases where they like updated the graphics even, and people didn't really love them, or those didn't do as well. But now they're saying like, okay, this is like, we're going to go back. In that case, they're going back to the original and making it look almost as exactly as it did, but on all modern platforms.
Yeah.
And then in this one, they're saying we're just going to rebuild it from the ground up, but use the same story and elements that everyone loved from before. And yeah, so I'll be curious if will it get traction? Is it primarily a nostalgia play, or will it get traction with new players?
Yeah.
And I think that's something we don't know. But yeah, I mean, if you have IP that was successful, you generally want to keep on using it, right?
It kind of begs the question of like, in 30 years, what the Fortnite remake would look like? Because like, what variation, which version of the game would they? Yeah. Anyway, we don't have to worry about that until episode 6,000 and whatever of the podcast. So
yes,
let's hop in the car over to Apple Corner. Our Foghorn Corner.
Yeah.
Just breaking news actually while we're talking is that Apple's announced a September event on September 14th for likely a new iPhone, some sort of AR based iPhone-y stuff. So
cool.
Sure
I hadn't seen that yet.
This was probably heard about that already by the time I listen to this when it comes out later this week. But at any rate, just so it's mentioned, and we'll have discussions about that, I'm sure, in the future and how it affects gaming on Apple. So
we'll see if there's some arcade-related announcements at that event.
Exactly. This is the year for Apple Arcade, except it might be announcing that they are ditching it, or they just don't even mention it at all. We'll see.
Yeah.
Anyways, on to the games.
Yes. So several new releases have come out in the last couple weeks. I've tried a bunch of them. Nothing terribly sticky. But before we get into the games, I think you had posted an article called "The Surprise Chain," kind of about Apple when they were like constantly delighting with their events. And for this upcoming event, like we know what's coming, right? It's the next version of iOS, and it's a new iPhone, and the new iPhone is going to be better in a lot of individual ways, but it's going to be the same, colorful glass slate with a really good camera. Like it's not going to be anything better than that. Now, I mean, I'm planning to upgrade myself because I'm on a 3-year-old one, and the batteries are going, and a new camera will be nice for family stuff and whatnot. But that was an interesting read, kind of about how many things they were releasing in how many different product lines, just boom, 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 constantly new and novel stuff coming out in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, it was a crazy time of like the development that I was actually working at the University Computer Store locally here, and it just felt like every 6 months we had something new we had to learn, like going to Apple training, even like Final Cut Pro. Like they were teaching everybody everything at the time, like video editing, and then also new airport like wireless things, and then iTunes, etc. Like just all the different stuff that was coming out that they were iterating on that. And at the time, like when I look back, it feels like that was a long period of time. But then looking at what Dave Rupert here put together, this like quick chart of the history of it all, like from 2003 back to 98, so like 5 years total that he sort of chunked together, and just the amount of stuff they did is incredible compared to what you see, at least publicly, what they announce these days, even though the scale these days is even just insane as far as how many things they're putting out, units of iPhones, etc. But Yeah, you just don't see that kind of development, and it isn't as exciting to be an Apple nerd as it used to be, I think. But maybe that's just nostalgia talking to, like we were talking about with Mist and stuff. Like it's hard to know.
Yeah, I think some of it is probably nostalgia. Like that era was, I was in high school and college, so I was following the news closely as a fairly long time Mac user, but did not have the kind of disposable income to upgrade. I had one new computer in that period, my laptop for school, and I was doing the software upgrades, but I wasn't buying an X server or anything like that, right? But yeah, I think some of it is probably the feeling that there was an Apple club, that because it was like a smaller, and you, especially when Apple was the nearly bankrupt company in the
Yeah,
90s, right? It developed this culture, and you see Apple bloggers like Gruber and Syracuse to talk about this, um, that there was kind of this almost like victim mentality, or feeling of being downtrodden, right? Like
yeah,
you had secret knowledge that Macs were better than everything else, but no one knew and no one recognized it. And now Apple's the richest company on the planet, and they sell millions of iPhones for thousands of dollars every single year.
yeah,
So it's
yeah,
it's different.
yeah. The club is, you're not even like, it's not like you're having arguments with your parents or your coworker about iPhone or Apple software versus Windows or whatever. It's just kind of like that's all been leveled out, and who cares really. And there's the odd like snarky Windows phone comment or whatever, that, or Android or whatever device that might happen amongst people, but everybody, even, it's for the better, I think, have realized the devices themselves aren't really that important, and fighting over them is not that interesting. It's more about what you can do with them and the detrimental effect they're having on society as a whole.
Yeah.
We're kind of all unified in like kind of disgust, I think, in ways that you just weren't back then, because the scale wasn't nearly as large when you put out iMovie, which felt like at the time was like this, and it is like a groundbreaking, this is going to change the movie industry kind of feeling. And you look at like the long-term play of that, like the movie makers of now, the Taika Waititi's and whoever, like the movies they started on were probably on an iMovie based system or whatever, where they were getting to fiddle around with actually making movies really easily on their laptop, and then that kind of freed them up to do other things and figure out other stuff in terms of making good movies. But yeah, it wasn't really the scale that we have now of a new device that kind of changes how we function as a society the same way.
Yeah, and I think that's why there's always the rumors in the lead up to the events, when they were a little less predictable, got really wild, and now it's I think it's why you have people being like, oh, here, the Apple Watch was like the last new thing, is kind of what's perceived, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I find the M1 transition to Apple Silicon fascinating for several levels, like just from a computer architecture perspective, but also all of the other aspects to it. But I think for most people, that's not. It makes your computer faster, but it's not that interesting.
Yeah, it's like technical mumbo jumbo with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're getting dangerously into tech podcast territory here. So I should jump to some of the Apple Arcade releases that I've tried. Have you tried any of the new ones?
No, I'm looking through your list, and I didn't have a chance to try any of these. So let's do a quick rundown of them, and I'll throw some stuff up on the screen. We can.
So Do-Don-Pachi Resurrection HD Plus. So Plus tells you this is an old game that is being re-released. And I had never heard of this one before. The original iOS release was already a port of an existing game, and this is a shmup, shoot 'em up, or bullet hell game where you're just constantly shooting at incoming aliens. I played a fair bit of Raiden DX on arcade at the local laser tag place, and that was my kind of introduction to this genre. And then there were a couple of like shareware games that were like this that I've played that I've had fun with over the years.
Yeah.
It's very weird. There's kind of a story. There's like time travel, and then the final boss spaceships all turn into like robot women in like Japanese schoolgirl uniforms. I just don't know. I don't understand what's going on. And it's one of those games where you're basically just like holding fire and trying to dodge stuff. It's okay. If you like that type of game, it's a classic one like that. but I don't think that's I've already deleted off my phone. I don't think it's one I'm going to stick with. It's also one that, the on-screen controls are definitely not the way to play. You can play, but it would probably be better with a controller, which I did not try.
Yeah, I remember playing those in the arcade even, but way back, and like spitting some quarters into them or whatever, and fun. But yeah, not especially modern day. Like I think that's where it's nostalgia. It's kind of fun to try, but comparison with my kids, I can't imagine sticking with something like that for very long. Just like the level of chaos of just bullets flying everywhere. Like, I guess now that I say that out loud, that's kind of what they're doing in Fortnite. But I digress.
a little bit. I would, let's see, on the old man confusion scale for me, I think Fortnite was still more confusing than this one, because this was at least a recognizable gameplay type.
Yeah.
Even if the story was weird. So Masterchef Let's Cook. So this is obviously a tie-in with the Masterchef reality show series, or set of series, I guess. My son seems to be enjoying this a lot. It's kind of like that one little kid farming game we talked about several episodes ago.
Mm-hmm.
But you basically, there's a challenge. You're supposed to prepare a recipe. You have to swipe and cut and slice and combine things carefully on the screen with the touch controls, and then you present it to the judges. As you play, you can unlock more recipes, unlock outfits for your character. There's like daily challenges. I did not see any multiplayer. It seems like you're just being ranked against computer competitors. But I may just not have been able to figure out, right? Because I was trying to figure out if there was a way like my son and I could play against each other where we're both competing on the same recipe or something like that.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it seems like this would be a really good one for younger kids. You're just messing with food. Definitely a more touch centric one. I did not try it on tvOS.
Yeah, it is on all four. So unlike the previous game, which is on the iPhone, iPad, so it's Mac, iPhone, iPad, Apple TV as well, which makes sense for a big tie-in, I guess. That you'd hope that they'll be able to get a few more eyeballs on this one, just with the branding opportunities there, I guess. So, is it difficult to play? Like, were you getting frustrated?
I think No, I think the first time I played through, I was a little confused by like exactly how you were supposed to slice or drop things as you're assembling ingredients. But the on-screen prompts are pretty clear. So no, I think it's a pretty easy to play. You're kind of relaxing, and definitely unlike some of the other free-to-play cooking games I've seen, where like you're running a restaurant and the orders are coming in faster and faster and faster, and they're trying to stress you out so that you pay real money to like unlock, timers or reset your score or whatever. So, this feels much more chill than games like that I've seen.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking like even like Overcooked, which is designed to be fun but also more intense in couch co-op kind of mode, where you're shouting at each other to go get the tomato or whatever, or someone grab the chop up the lettuce and stuff like that. So.
And I like Overcooked, but it's definitely not a chill game.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Yeah, our family has descended into fights a few times over wrong orders being placed. So much like when we go to a real restaurant. So Zen Pinball Party was the next one.
Yeah, so Zen Studios has kind of been the dominant in software pinball tables for a while. They even get licenses from the real pinball manufacturers like Bally and others to recreate their tables virtually. And this game is a set of 12 tables. A couple of them have media tie-ins. So there's like Kung Fu Panda. I tried the My Little Pony Friendship is Magic one, since my son used to watch that show a lot when he was a little younger. There's monthly tournaments where you have a couple of daily entries to try and beat the highest score on each table. It's very much the same thing as the other individual Zen iOS pinball games that I've tried. I had a Star Wars one, and I have the one Star Wars one for Switch, actually, that has a ton of tables in it. In terms of touch controls, pretty straightforward. I mean, you're basically just tapping the right or left sides of the screen to do the flippers. It's pretty fun. I think I'll kind of, this is one I'll slowly drop back into from time to time. I always liked physical pinball, and I liked virtual pinball going back to the old Crystal Caliburn on Mac for Mac shareware. Mm-hmm. So I think this is a fun one if you like pinball. If you don't like pinball, probably not that fun for you.
The design, the visuals of the game look really good. Like it looks really well made, as their other games are. And so the one note, I guess, I'm just thinking for my kids, even recommending it to them, is that it's a 3.3 gigabyte game, and so understandably, given all that's going on, graphic wise. But I know my daughter, like an older device, I think it probably won't even play on maybe, but even the iPhone 7, I think we have for one of the kids with a 16 gig. Is that even, maybe that's not the right one. Anyways, taking up a lot of space. That
Yeah.
will then crash the device.
That's a good point, because it is very much a the realistic models of the tables are probably where it gets pretty large, and it's not like other 3D games where it's like, oh well, you just recolor the one monster over and over again, so it doesn't actually take up much game data. This is every table is completely photorealistically modeled, so it adds up fast. Yeah.
What's Baldo? Is that, I think I remember reading about this one.
Yeah, so Baldo, if I were to describe it, it's Zelda through the lens of Miyazaki, right? So the style is very reminiscent of some of the art style is very reminiscent of some of the Miyazaki films, and the gameplay seems to be more like a classic Zelda. You know, you find out that you are part of the line of ancient heroes or whatever. You have to go get your first sword and discover the power, in this case, of the owls, or the owl guardians. And the owl guardians have disappeared from the world, and so bad stuff is starting to happen. So you need to go maybe help find them. So we played this on tvOS with the controller. And yeah, it's pretty cool. I didn't play too far. I don't think it was super interesting to my son. I think this, like, story wise, didn't click for him yet. But it's this really beautiful, kind of agrarian RPG cell shaded world. So definitely the kind of larger story game that I think I'll slowly play through. Haven't really gotten into the action of it yet. I was just kind of exploring the hometown and meeting characters, so I can't speak to the combat yet.
It looks really good, and it's just like, as you're describing that, and whether your kid is into it, and I'm thinking of my own kids even too, and just like it almost feels like disrespectful to like the level of detail and just craftsmanship on a game like this. And we can just, thanks to the blessing of Apple Arcade for $5 a month or whatever, we can just toss it aside if it's not really doing it for us. And like, it feels like, I don't know, some part of me is kind of sad that we're in this state, I guess, for the artists or the creative types, because I know my kids will be like, try it for like 20 minutes maybe, and then I don't know this, I guess I shouldn't say that, they might get really into it, but yeah, then they'll just like toss it aside and go back to Fortnite, and it's like,
right,
you don't know what you're you're missing or whatever. But
where is kind of high art in video games, and we've talked a lot about how some of the games on Apple Arcade are these more artful creations that don't seem like they would have a lot of success if you just tried to sell them up front, and they wouldn't be the same if you tried to do the in-app purchase money grab. So Apple Arcade is a way to get them out there, but like you said, it is very easy to just be like, oh, I'll try this. I'm not going to finish it, but it's okay. I didn't drop $20, $60 up front and didn't like it. Right? It's just
yeah. That's where actually there's something in me about, like, I can toss aside a video game, no problem. I mean, if I've paid for it, I generally try to like play it all the way through. But like, whereas something on Netflix, Disney, like a show that I start watching, I'm really reluctant to stop it, even no matter how bad it is. I'm like a completionist in that sense, I guess. And obviously it's much more passive to just sit on the couch and not have to get up and reach the remote.
Right.
There's probably an element of that to it too. But
I mean, it's sunk cost fallacy, right? Like, oh, I've spent so much time watching, I just should keep watching and see the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So,
yeah, the last thing to highlight in Apple Corner is I've gotten a couple of App Store stories. So this is their new kind of thing that'll pop up every once in a while to like promote some apps to you, and it's part of their newer marketing. But I thought the one I thought was interesting was this learn to code at any age, and so they kind of have some coding and code like apps grouped by kind of where you are in your interest in learning to code. So really graphical stuff for little kids, and then starting to get into actual coding for kids and students, and then like hey, I'm an adult and I want to learn a new programming language or UI framework level of stuff. So
Yeah, that's where I would guess the iPad definitely would be like a great way to approach these, right? Like the iPhone, if they do actually run on. I know Swift Playground is only iPad, but
yeah, for sure, the ones that I've tried with my son that have the more graphical interface, like it's a great interface on iPad, because you're dragging around kind of little components that represent logic or flow control in your program. You wouldn't want to do that on a much smaller screen, and it's the ones that we've used that are browser based, where you're using it with a mouse, I think are a little harder, right? Until you get into, I'm just typing code into a text box, right?
Mm-hmm. And then you have some Among Us tips. Have you dipped your toes into Among Us?
I mean, I played Among Us as a little bit kind of last year when it was like a craze, with some random people and also some coworkers. We played a few rounds. I have not gone back to it. I know wasn't there like some kind of Among Us like game mode added to Fortnite, and people were kind of complaining that it was kind of ripping off a little bit?
Yeah, they did.
I forget if we talked about that already.
I think we mentioned it, and my kids actually have tried it. Two of them tried it anyways, I think, and it's definitely like it was fun enough to play. They did kind of move on. I think it's one of those games that's like definitely more fun, just like the real Among Us, more fun with people and you're kind of shouting at each other and aghast that you can't be that offended that some random person tried to kill you in Fortnite when that's kind of the goal of the game, I guess. And so yeah, they definitely enjoyed it. I think it kind of like isn't as intense as playing actual Fortnite, so they just went back to the deathmatch mode or whatever. So yeah, but yeah, it's a one of those fun ones too for like like you said, staff event, virtual stuff. Whether you're a kid or an adult, it's kind of easy enough to play and get grasp what's going on. So
yeah.
Moving on. Finally, do we have time for Tabletop Corner today?
I think we can squeeze in a few minutes of tabletop corner. Wow, we're getting to the end of the show here.
We used up all our words. Okay, Catan beer. What is going on? I just saw the headline.
Yeah, so I just saw this on my feed at one point in the last couple weeks. So there's like a beer subscription service that if you're a member, they now have Catan branded beer, and there'll be one flavor for each of the hex tiles in the game. So there's like a wheat beer. I think they have like an IPA for forest and so on. I don't know. It's funny to me that a board game is sufficiently popular to get this kind of branded tie-in, right?
Yeah.
And not just like the Monopoly game at McDonald's, but like more of the strategy Euro game is popular enough to get to this level.
Yeah, I'm curious. We'll have to check in with Kyle over at his day job if Untapped is going to feature these in some way or whatever to part of some sort of marketing tie-in to get people drinking it.
Yeah, that's well. I'll have to see if he can get me the hookup, right? Yeah. If I can't find it. Have you been playing any family games like up at the cabin? I know you mentioned Screen Time is back, but
yeah, no. Unfortunately, we left it up to our kids to remember to bring the games up. We don't have the family cabin is still like in work in progress, and so there isn't much up there yet. Other than the only one, like I think I mentioned in the last episode, is Dutch Blitz, and so that got pulled out a couple times. But yeah, nothing. We haven't. Nothing has been played lately between school and. Video games with the cousins. We haven't pulled out many board games other than Dutch Blitz, or card games, I guess, for that matter too. So, how about you?
We haven't played a ton. We definitely played some on my vacation the previous week. My son's been getting a little bit more into wanting to learn Race for the Galaxy. Like I said last episode, it's definitely more of a complex game. So we're just learning, and he's having fun with that. And then there's several. I don't know if you have any little free libraries in your area, but it's like a little wood structure on the sidewalk, and people will put books in to donate, and you can just walk in and grab a book and put it back later if you finish it or keep it.
Yeah.
But one near us, we happened to be walking back from the park and happened to take a route past one of these, and I saw an entire set of King of Tokyo, the board game, was sitting there. So I was like, oh, we've played this once at the game store. Let's grab it and play a few rounds. So this is a pretty fun game, kind of loosely based on like Godzilla type monster movies,
Right.
where you're trying to win either by scoring the most points or by eliminating all of the other monsters, and you score points by maintaining control over the city, and of course you do damage depending, brawling between the different monsters, and there's kind of a Yahtzee-like strategy of rolling the dice and deciding, to group them in different ways, whether you heal or do damage or earn points. And so that's kind of how that works. It's pretty fun. I think we'll it was in good condition. We'll keep it around for a little while, and maybe when we're done, pass it back to the little free library. And now that I've seen people do it, if we have a few other games that like my son has aged out of or we're less interested in, might retire them there instead of trying to sell them to the game store for a few bucks.
Yeah. Oh, it's awesome that somebody would do that. Just pass it along that way. And yeah, we don't have, I haven't seen nothing in our area anyways. There's definitely in the older areas of the city, I think it tends to be for whatever reason. But, and so, yeah, maybe I should start one over here and see what happens.
Yeah. And that makes sense. I mean, our neighborhood of Seattle is definitely one of the more established ones, a little denser. So in fact, I saw there was a new one that went up on our usual walk to my son's elementary school. There was another little free library that there's almost too many in the neighborhood, but which is maybe a sign that there are too many books. But
yeah, not a good, or a good problem to have, is what I meant to say.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's cool. Let's wrap up this episode of 25 Cents. We'd love to hear from you if you have questions, comments, or I don't know if concerns is the right word, but about anything we've talked about.
I mean, we do get pretty concerning sometimes. Yeah. Our episodes are getting longer. Maybe they can raise that as a concern. We used to be shorter.
Yeah, I think we used to be like 30 some minutes or whatever. It was like a quick show, and then we enjoy talking too much about games. So whatever.
Yeah.
We are reachable on Twitter, 25C Arcade, of course. But in the meantime, thank you for listening to 25 Cents, our video game podcast, of course. I'm Chris, and you can find me on Twitter at iChris.
And you can find me on Twitter and pretty much everywhere else as Ultra Nerd. That's NURD.
And you can find 25 Cents wherever you listen to podcasts. Be sure to check out the Good Stuff Patreon, patreon.com/goodstuff. You can join us in the Discord where the hilarity ensues beyond the show. So, in the meantime, have a great day.
It's a fun community.
Adios.
Bye.
All right. Hit finish on the old stream. Thanks for watching, zeros. Both of you.